and that is to provide an update on the Ligado issue, Friday was inauguration day of a thing called the Space Beat Memo. It's a new weekly newsletter from Politico, and it's designed to focus on space and satellites. So this is their inaugural, first ever newsletter with a great rundown they chose the Ligado issue. Just to remind everyone what we're talking about, the Ligado, that's Ligado, the Ligado order was a spectrum sale approved back in April of 2020 that would let Ligado use the L-band or the spectrum, that's a spectrum close to the GPS for commercial use. And now, why is that a problem? It's a problem because Ligado's signals are about 2 billion times as powerful as GPS signals, so they would cause interference, according to all unbiased figures, sources, to the GPS. Now, here's one way to put the interference into perspective. Because GPS signals travel from satellites in space, by the time those signals get to the Earth's surface, they are low power. Because the FCC order allows Ligado to repurpose spectrum to operate in a terrestrial-based network, Ligado signals on Earth's surface will be much more powerful than GPS, causing substantial harm and interference. Now, we know that basically everyone in government opposes this. I've talked about this now since the last time, just June the 23rd, down here on the floor. Shortly after the Ligado order was announced in April of 2020, the NTIA filed a petition to reconsider, basically a petition asking them to reconsider their decision, again, giving the negative impact it would have. This was signed and on behalf of some 15 governmental agencies. The NTIA is the National Telecommunications Information Administration. They are an agency within the Department of Commerce that serves as the President's primary advisor on telecom policies. As I announced on June the 23rd, I recently received a letter from Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo, confirming that, and I'm quoting now, there has been no change to the Department of Commerce's or NTIA's opposition to the FCC's Ligado order, unquote. That's a direct quote. That's the new administration. We know that last administration believed the same thing, and this administration is following on this cause, and it's a very significant one. She also pledged that the NTIA will continue to pursue the petition for reconsideration, the petition that represents the Departments of Commerce, Defense, Interior, Justice, Homeland Security, Energy, Transportation, NASA, FAA, and more. That's primarily the entire government. Now, this is huge, and it showed once again that there is a bipartisan opposition to the Ligado order that is continuing into the Biden administration. But that's not all I'm doing. I'm also introducing the Retain GPS Act, which would ensure federal agencies, state governments, and all others negatively impacted, all that are negatively impacted by the Ligado's activities, by actions of a private actor, and are not left holding the bag when the costs start coming in, and worse, are not put in a position where they have to push the cost to the American consumers. The House has introduced the legislation as well. That's led by Representatives Cooper, Mike Turner, Frank Lucas, and others. It is just common sense and only fair, as David Grossman, the Executive Director of GPS Innovation Alliance, said to Politico. The Retain Act, talking about the act that I've introduced, is just extending those protections that the FCC recognized were critical for federal agencies' GPS systems on a civil scale. In other words, if we're going to protect government, protect the individuals too, if it's done through the negligence or bad operations of Ligado. So the GPS Innovation Alliance is just one of more than 100 we're talking about. This is a large number of people. Companies and industry groups that support my Retain GPS Act. And why is this so popular? Because GPS is essential to everything we do. You know, people had thought when this thing first came on, they're just concerned about the air industry and the airlines and others, but these are some of the day-to-day things. Now, I don't really have to read this, but I think it's important that people know that it's important to others than themselves, because I don't know anyone who isn't really concerned about GPS and its safety and working ability. A big one, using the credit or debit card. Every time you use a credit or debit card, or when you're making a purchase using the ATM, our financial systems rely on GPS timing to work. Another, making a phone call. Cell phone networks rely on GPS to synchronize cell towers so calls can be passed seamlessly. If they experience interference, your call could drop when moving from tower to tower. Now, here's one most people don't expect, and that's energy. When that is filling up your tank at the pump or managing electrical grids to light our homes, we rely on GPS timing to safely operate underground pipelines and our electricity grid. Farmers and ranchers, you don't think about them as being involved in this, but in this day and age, when they're planting crops, when they're applying fertilizer, during harvest operations, moving large critical machinery with precision, they depend on GPS to do it. Working out, all these healthy people out there that are doing what they're supposed to be doing, I'm not doing, that is running and keeping in good health, but 20% of those use a fitness tracker or smartwatch, the majority of which are GPS to count steps and track distances. Taking a flight, commercial and civil aviation relies on GPS to navigate safely. And just driving around each day, countless Americans rely on Google Maps, Waze, Apple Maps, and other navigation systems to get them from point A to point B. And while no one hopes that there could be any kind of a problem in terms of a fire, an ambulance, or an injury, the 9/11 operators and the IMSA GPS use GPS to do the satellite communications to locate a caller or navigator as quickly as possible. We had a group coming in, documented cases of lives that have been saved. And there's more, weather forecasting, movement of goods on our highways, and the rest, and it goes on and on. So that's why everyone agrees we need to protect GPS usage from being damaged by the Ligado order. And who is on the other side? Just Ligado and the people that they pay to support them. That's a whole lot of lobbying firms. So the Politico article highlighted that they are staffed up with their lobbying and public relations. So far this year, the Virginia company has enlisted a powerful roster of lobbying firms, currently numbering some 15. So again, on the side of GPS and satellite communications are members of the House and the Senate, 15 federal agencies, and over 100 companies, organizations. The other, Ligado, is really just in a lobbying group. I'll just leave with one reminder. We know that the Ligado order would damage GPS. The FCC said as much when they approved the order. The FCC said, quote, Ligado shall expeditiously repair or replace as needed any U.S. government GPS devices that experience or are likely to experience harmful interference from Ligado's operations. But if Ligado believes that their press states that they won't cause interference to GPS, then why should they be afraid of my Retain Act? And while they ponder that, I yield the floor.